Hey guys, it's time to Nefis and chill, and amongst a few things I want to still talk about that are going to come to us on March 8th with Update 29 or the Flames of Vision DLC are the changes to the Dual Wield and Two Hander passives, or rather specifically the Twin Blade and Blunt passive for Dual Wield and the Heavy Weapons passive for Two Hander. Let's go over the dual wield passives first, and I'm pretty much going to summarize what each change means. So we are currently on the public test server at the moment, so the tooltip's going to be different. But what has changed? Well, compared to the live server, Axes now increases your crit damage and healing done by up to 4% per axe, rather than having a chance to apply a bleed per axe. Daggers, on the other hand, now grant up to 3.4% critical chance per dagger rather than 5% weapon critical chance per dagger. Maces now grant up to 1650 armor penetration per mace rather than that wonky, useless formula that made maces and mauls useless in PvE content, which did not exactly ignore 10% of a target's physical resistance, but I'll link the video that's in the description below if you want to look at the old formula. But yeah, swords, lastly, now grant 71, or rather up to 142 weapon damage per sword, rather than 6% increased damage done per sword. So this is a pretty big change, especially for stamina DPS and PvE. So how do we summarize this? Well, after testing on the PTS, and it is consistent with the other people's testing on the PTS as of week 3 or week 4. So, Axe, it does look appealing at first, like the increase to crit damage and the crit healing by up to 4%. However, this is a lower DPS than, unfortunately, the bleed RNG that Axes had, and the critical healing, it's a little lackluster, I would say, and if that was the reason for perhaps the nerf to Axes, then probably just take that away, because in fact, you probably just want to use maces over axes. Funnily enough, with the overall changes coming to ESO next patch, with the overall, across the board nerf to crit values, we've kind of been pushed towards using daggers and double daggers rather than dagger and axe, which is rather ironic because the developer note says previously this twin bladed blunt passive was too binary in terms of which was viewed as best, but instead of making it not so binary, they made it binary. You're definitely not gonna be using axes at all next patch as stam DPS. It maces. I mean, this is the first time in history that maces and mauls have finally become appealing, but this is not a good way to make them appealing. But maces are gonna be a lot better than axes next patch, especially with in conjunction with the CP 2.0 system. Daggers will of course remain still strong because again, crit was nerfed across the board for item sets and so forth, and passives. So you're probably gonna still want daggers, and how I would order the from top to bottom DPS is gonna be daggers at the top, probably maces second, swords third, and axe at the bottom, which is where axe and sword is kind of on the same level, but sword is also pretty underwhelming compared to the 6% weapon, or rather 6% damage done per sword. Now it's again gonna be 142 weapon and spell damage per. I mean, that's alright in terms of hybridization and making things a bit more appealing for a more broad set of builds or options. However, it's very underwhelming, I would say, mathematically and also in actual DPSing. But yeah, these are the dual changes coming, and it's rather unfortunate that axes are kind of just gone out of consideration. But yeah, for sure, I love the maces change. Definitely a lot less not a lot less, but like definitely significantly less useless than what it was previously, to the point that axes are just not that appealing. For the two-handed heavy weapons passive, pretty much similar changes. Great swords increase your weapon and spell damage by 284. Axes increase your critical damage and critical healing done by 8%, which is just double or just combined of two one-handed axes. And maces increase your armor penetration by 3300. So again, the same exact thing, except of course you don't have a heavy dagger. You'd probably want either, it's probably maces at the top with swords on the second ranking and axes at the bottom. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I want to talk about. I would say in the future, if they want to revisit this, and I think they should, probably make it so that instead of crit healing, just get rid of it, or make the damage a bit more consistent for axes, even if it's at lower values. But yeah, that's all I want to talk about in terms of the dual wield and heavy two-handed weapon passive changes. Just so you guys are aware of this, because this was kind of glossed over in light of the more bigger changes like CP 2.0. But yeah, thanks for watching, stay safe, and see you guys next time.